So my next guest up is AEX Gold, and they are an independent mining company with the largest mineral portfolio of gold and strategic mineral assets covering over 4,000 square miles in southern Greenland. I've said before, southern Greenland, I've now learned, is absolutely the place that you want to be, and that's where this company is, with a massive portfolio there. And this includes the 2 known gold belts. AEX's principal objectives are the identification, acquisition, exploration and development of gold and strategic metal properties. Now, to you and me, that means battery metals and more. Believe me, AEX have all sorts of interesting things in their portfolio. The principal assets are 100% interested in the Nalunaq project, which is an old gold mine in the south of Greenland. And that is what they describe as an advanced exploration stage project with an exploitation license. That takes 10 years to get in Greenland, by the way, so that's no small thing. And that includes the previously operating Nalunaq gold mine. Eldur joins us tonight. Welcome, Eldur.
Thank you, Donald. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's fantastic to have you on. Thank you so much.
Well, yeah, I'm delighted.
Okay, that was a thumbnail sketch of AEX Gold. Give us the deep dive.
No, I certainly will do, and I think I'll be kind of taking you through at least the first part of our presentation, and then giving us some time for question and answers towards the end of that. But I'm glad and happy to be able to present in front of this crowd here. AEX Gold, as you mentioned earlier, is primarily focused on South Greenland. We are, as I like to explain it, in an elephant country. Greenland is half the size of Australia. It's one of 3 frontiers in the world that is yet to be explored. If you include Greenland, Afghanistan, and Colombia, the rest of the world has been mined and developed. But Greenland is at the forefront of the frontier that is left, and it's an OSC jurisdiction. We've been working there for the past 8 years, and our key focus has been to create a Greenlandic legacy. It's effectively Scandinavia that we're working in. There is not a long tradition of mining in Greenland, but there is a long tradition in living in the country, operating in the country, and our key focus there is to build our portfolio with the people and stakeholders in Greenland. And we've been very fortunate enough to be able to work with them very prominently so far. When it comes to our assets, we have a land package of more than 4,000 square kilometers in South Greenland. You can see that on the picture here on the right. So when I say South Greenland, I'm from Iceland, and I'm Icelandic origin. And to give you the scale of Greenland, then Greenland goes more southerly than Iceland. It goes more northerly and more westerly, more easterly. So it's very, very large. But South Greenland is at the same latitude as, for example, the most northerly part of Britain. So there we are in an ice-free condition. Our operating seasons are on surface from April all the way to end of December. You get a winter similar to what you find in Reykjavik, so you get some snow on the road and so on. But it's very good to operate. You have international airport, you have a hydropower system, you have communication system, various different infrastructure is in place. Our assets in South Greenland are quite unique. You probably have seen it a few years back when Donald Trump was in power in the United States. He wanted to acquire Greenland. And one of the key aspects why he wanted to acquire Greenland was due to South Greenland. From our mineral system modeling, we know that South Greenland sits on a boundary of Archean and then younger rocks that are sitting around here, and therefore there's a lot of fluids that have come into the system. So this area consists of many of the largest rare earth and gold deposits that currently exist in the world. We have 8 targets that are our kind of our most developed targets, with both in gold and also in strategic minerals. On the one hand, we have the past producing mine of Nalunaq, which I wouldn't call an old mine because it was in production from 2004 to 2014. It is one of the highest grade gold mine in the world. It has about 18.5 grams per ton and has a resource of 250,000 ounces. More importantly, we have an exploration potential where the higher limit is 2 million ounces. This means that we have a path to increase these resources via drilling and further geological sampling to make sure that the life of the mine is long enough. Most of the infrastructure is in place already, road, harbor, 20 kilometers of tunneling. The permits are in place. We still are finishing EA and Assay, but the whole mining permits are in place. And therefore, our path to production is shorter than in most other areas that we are operating in. We see Nalunaq as a foundational piece for all of our other assets, because being in Greenland is you need to have infrastructure, you need to have drill rigs, you need to have food, people to serve food, people to do the drilling, geologists, etc., etc. And we look at Nalunaq as the key to unlock and find the other elephants in country. One of the first elements that we see and have the potential is Vaga Ridge. There we have gold mineralization in orogenic or in veins, but also in the host rock. The highest samples there is more than 2,533 grams per ton. It's a ridge that is 2 kilometers long. And this year we've done geophysical work, high prospective imagery, a lot of sampling to understand if not only if this area is larger and more prominent and prepare it for drilling, but also if there are other areas with the same signature within the Vaga license. And we'll be quite excited to put out the news on that in due course. We then have Tartok, which is another area here called a little bit more to the west. There, the highest grade sample is 106 grams per ton on surface again, and there you have more than 5 kilometer strike extension and a width of about 1 kilometer. Very highly underexplored. Last but not least is the Nalunaq license, which is the most easterly advanced license. There we have the highest grade sample is 175 grams per ton in an area that is 20 meters thick and 1 kilometer long on surface again. And we're just tracing this on completely undrilled. And we've been doing structural work, a lot of sampling work, and we're excited to bring those results also from last year to the market in due course. This year, we already brought news on Sava, which is our IOCG copper play, which sits around here. This is next door to the big strategic rare earth deposits in South Greenland. We believe this is a world-class IOCG. IOCG means iron-rich copper deposit. So it has more than 3.4% copper. It has approximately 4% zinc. It has niobium and other minerals within it. Very exciting license. And we've been doing we did some geophysical work last year and been targeting this license for further drilling. We then have the extension of that in Coppermanburg. This was a previous mine that was in a high-grade copper mine here that we've just taken up. And then we have graphite, we have PGM, all of which are on surface. And this is the beauty of Greenland. You are actually looking at things on surface that is completely underexplored. And that's what makes us quite excited about all of it. Looking into the company itself, we are a dual listed company. We are both listed on the London market, but also we initially listed on the Canadian market back in 2017. We have a market capitalization of 78 million sterling. We have about 25 million Canadian dollar in cash at the moment after last year's season. This number there will be updated in due course, and note that. We have strong institutional shareholding base. Board and management own 16% stake. And what I want to say is one of the kind of key attributes of our company is that we have the Sovereign Fund of Denmark, or Vækst Funding, and the Sovereign Fund of Greenland, and the largest pension fund of Greenland. They collectively own approximately 10% stake. So we have a lot of participation also from the local partners there. In terms of our people, our key with all of our work throughout the process, because we know that this is an area, Greenland is, that will be looked at, and there's a lot of larger companies like Anglo American and others who are already entering the country looking for large deposits. So therefore our focus has been to build up a team both in Greenland and outside of Greenland where professionality is a focus. And that team, the leaders of that team, you can see here on the picture. So our chairman is Graham Stewart, which you probably know from his days at Sava Petroleum. He's now the chairman of Longboat Energy. Sava Petroleum got sold very timely in 2019 to DNO for more than $800 million. Me, myself, I'm a geologist. I have built up companies in geothermal, and one of the few who have built up a company in geothermal and sold it. So I sold that company in 2012. This was a joint venture with Sinopec group in China, where we built up geothermal district heating networks, drilled in old oil field and gas fields from 3 kilometers, pumped up hot water and heated up cities in China. And we had exclusivity all of north of China. And then since 2012, when I sold my last business, I founded this business here. We've then been fortunate to bring on people like Jakob Graus, who is our CFO. He has more than 20 years experience in the mining industry. He's been with Xstrata, Glencore. He's been was the CFO of Eldur Gold that was sold to Kirkland Lake, which is now part of Agnico, and has various and long-lasting experience in the mining industry. Joan Plant is our VP of ESG. She's been working in Greenland in the past 10 years, both with our predecessor and then with us. We have James Gilbertson, who was a welcome addition to the team in September. He came on board as VP of exploration for us. He previously ran SRK Exploration and then Asakati. On the board representative are Warwick Morley, who was the previous COO of Kinross Gold. He is now the chairman of Wesdome Gold in Canada, that has done extremely well, and Karura, and as a board member of Karura. We have Lion Kelly, who is a board member of B2 Gold, and a successful career especially related to many of the ESG factors. We have then Siggi Þorkilsson, who has a long-standing and prominent career in finance. Line Frederiksen lives in Greenland and is a CFO of a telecommunication company in Greenland. And then David Newhauser, who is a shareholder and one of our initial investors and prominent investor in the research sector, both in UK and Canada. So how we operate in Greenland is by a focus, which is a collaborating caring. What we mean by that is that this is a pristine environment. There are people there, though only 50,000 people, that we need to work with. We need to engage stakeholders. We need to understand the size of how to operate within this country, but also how to collectively make sure that these projects are in harmony with people there. And throughout our year there, we have been focusing on the environmental bit and how that can support our business. So from my experience myself building up both geothermal and hydropower projects, we are looking at hydro and actually wind to utilize as a primary source for energy for our mine. We have been looking into supporting an initiative in South Greenland, which is putting in forestry to kind of make the place greener as we go along. But what I want to say here is that this country has just been scrubbed up with glacier. So you don't have much vegetation or wildlife. So we are now entering an area which is like similar to what you would find in an Amazon forest. And therefore we want to try to make things good and build up infrastructure that will last, but also will be very good for our margin going forward. On the social front, we have been lucky enough to be able to employ more than 50% of the staff which are Greenlandic, but that is not a measure in itself because there are so many projects going on in Greenland now. So what we've been focused more on is to train our people to get higher and higher up in the organization. So geologists, mining engineers, etc., drillers, etc. And we do that with local schools in country, and we have a special commitment with local contractor on site. On the governance side, we're listed on 2 exchanges. We did a straight IPO. We have a strong board, and Greenlandic law and practices are based on basically Danish and Scandinavian laws and as Canadians. So you are working in a very safe and good jurisdiction. A little bit about Greenland before I continue. Greenland really didn't open up in the current environment up until 2009 when the new mining code came in place. And since then, you had various different mineral deposits discovered in various different areas around the country, all on surface. So you have titanium, iron ore, 3 of the largest rare earth deposits, you have PGM, you have molybdenum, zinc, gold, obviously, and so on and so on. What we're seeing right now, there is a big interest by the majors coming into the company. So already Anglo-American is there, you have Chinese majors in the country, and most of the mostly prospective land in Greenland is already taken. So there is a surge of investment going into the country, but also more and more investors and other players coming into the country. This means that we have built up a position in South Greenland very wisely, quite counter-cyclically, which you as a shareholder can take advantage of by investing in our company. And this position you can see here, this sits here. We have earmarked all of the known gold plays in the Nalunaq gold belt, which is this red gold belt that you can see on the kind of right-hand side of this picture. And then the green licenses are covering copper, nickel, zinc, rare earths, PGM, and various other minerals, even graphite, large graphite plays as well, which we are all exploring and developing. And a lot of those explorations started about 7 years ago, but a lot of the physical exploration, sampling and geophysics we did last year, and we will be updating the market in coming weeks and months with all of those results, and we will be heading into an exploration season by mid-May to continue our work in country. In relation to our most advanced asset, we have this kind of a saying of being innovative and agile. You're working in a country, as you can see here, that has ice and bare rock. So you're not working in the middle of England. Your operatorship means a lot. And having an operating base and knowing how to operate is quite important, because the geology there is very sound and the jurisdiction. And what we want to do is that we want to leverage Nalunaq. And how do we leverage Nalunaq? Well, we've been focusing on resource de-risking, drilling, defining the structural model, which we call a geological model. We've been drilling also to increase the resources. And then to do all of these things, we built up a camp, and we finished our construction study for overall build-up of the processing plant and infrastructure around the Nalunaq project. So when we have gotten the resources to the size and scale that we feel comfortable, we can then quickly start production and utilize that cash flow and the operatorship to develop and increase and build up larger elephants in the country.
Okay, so you're out of time, I'm afraid, Eldur. You've had your 20 minutes. What would you like to do?
Sorry about that. I was looking at the clock here.
Do you want to take another minute to round up?
Yeah, so as a very kind of a short rundown on this, I think what you are looking at here as a model in this company is that you have a combination of developed asset that is ready to become into production. You then have all of these elephants that we are exploring in a world where we are in dire need of both critical minerals and gold. This is land, they don't make it any longer. And if you want to explore it anywhere, I suggest you do it in countries where your assets are not going to be taken away from you, and you can actually develop them in harmony with the community. And that's what we have here in AEX.
My first question is, AEX has been described as Europe's answer to the battery metals crisis. What are your thoughts on that as a description?
It's a very bold statement, but let's look at it at that. Like, the geology supports that, right? You have large potential there, and not only potential, drilled out deposits. So it becomes about execution. How are you going to build and bring these assets to the market? And therefore, you need funding in this industry, and you also need support on areas like Greenland to grow. We have that exposure because we built up that exposure for the past 8 years. So all of the data and everything to that statement supports that. You need to mine it somewhere. And I would suggest you rather want to do that in a safe jurisdiction that is known to us in Europe, rather than necessarily do it in places that are maybe less friendly, as we've seen in the most recent.
Well, that all makes perfect sense. Can I be bold? You've got 25 million Canadian in the bank. I mean, on the one hand, that's a lot of money. On the other hand, given the entire enormous scale of the potential that you guys have very cleverly uncovered, how can you do all that by yourselves? Or can you do all that by yourselves? Or would it be better to get farming partners, get into bed with some of these major miners that we've been discussing, or not? Tell me what your thoughts are on that.
So you're right. The growth of this company can be enormous, right? And therefore, but growth needs capital. So what we've, I think, quite cleverly done is that we built up an operating base. There's no much housing in Greenland for you, right? You need to have a drill rigs operating base, and we have that. And there are no company in Greenland that operates an exploration camp all year round. We can work there all year. We have people there right now, right? Cars, rigs, everything. And from that, and with good licenses, we can leverage that. We can look at joint venture, we can look at various bits and pieces. But I cannot tell you exactly how and when we're going to spend that capital unless we have our results, because that all predicates what we do next. But these assets are all, I would think, appealing to larger companies and larger players because they're in dire need. So we're quite confident when it comes to that.
And you did a lot of drilling in 2021, and it's been quite slow to get those results back to market. Is that because of COVID and so on?
It was predominantly due to that, yes. So we wanted to get those results in October, by the way, but then another variant came, and then the staff in Ireland couldn't do the assessment and various bits and pieces. This year we're going to put up a prep lab on site, so we're going to get those results quicker and process quicker. And now we are not dealing with any COVID either in Iceland or in Greenland, so we can fly in and out much easier. So we see that changing a lot going forward.
What would you prefer to talk about? You said that Nalunaq was the foundation. Is it better to discuss the assay results you go back from Nalunaq and how you see that progressing, and then we'll take Sava?
Yeah. So I think just on Nalunaq. So Nalunaq is a fantastic, what I believe is a 2 million ounce just within that vein that we're drilling. Before this season and last
season. You call the main vein? 2 million just in the main vein?
Exactly, just in the main vein. But we need to drill that out. The issue when you're drilling a deposit like that out, because it all this like big nuggets, so it's hard to hit the nugget with a rig and a hole that is just like this of a size. But what we quite cleverly, our geological team, have done is that we've understood now through a dike model or structural model where these high-grade structures are, we think. And then we've used the old mine to understand when you drill through a deposit that is maybe only giving you 1 gram per ton, but you're in the high-grade structure, what that became as a production rate. We call that a call factor. So with the systematic drilling in this high-grade structure and the call factor, we can then start deforming these 2 million ounces into these 5 different zones. And therefore, rather than mining it all, we're just mining the best bits and making good return from that, because grade is king, as they say in this industry.
Grade is king. That mine has only produced 300,000 tons before, so this is
350,000 ounces. Sorry, yeah.
Ounces. I do apologise. Ounces. So this is a major step forward, up to 2 million ounces.
Yeah. So they effectively, when they mined it, they hardly drilled it. They started mining it, and then they followed the vein. Then they lost the vein, and they didn't. So all of our time since we listed and so on has been to explore and drill it, and we spent millions and millions of dollars to get where we are today. Mm-hmm. So investors right now are coming into the stage where we de-risk the project, both with the construction studies in place and also how we want to build up the resource growth. And that's what we're hoping to be able to bring to the market.
What's your strategy for the next, say, year or two?
For the next year or two, we're going to continue drilling Nalunaq. We are waiting for all of the results of last year's drilling. It's with SRK. We're assessing things like resource statement and so on. We want to continue drilling these things out. We then want to start doing tunneling, mining, taking those ore out to be ready for then processing, which we will either do at site or off-site. And then once we are ready with enough ore in front of us, we'll then set up the processing plant. And we will do this in a stepwise fashion. But we want to be able to be in a position where we can generate cash flow in a relatively short-term period, but we don't want to start generating cash flow until we're absolutely sure how we're going to mine it to make that cash flow very, very valuable for us.
Okay. Let's turn to the audience. Paul Rentkin, he says, Eldur, your available budget this year for the other projects besides Nalunaq?
So the available budget this year is a little bit dependent on the results that we're getting from the other assets, right? But how we've
Which all seem wonderful, to be honest. So doesn't that give you a headache, and a good headache, but a headache nonetheless, in that everything is fantastic, so what do you go for first? How do you work out where to spend your capital?
Yeah, so what we do, because this is Greenland, we planned everything like it's a good result or bad result, we don't do anything, right? But if it's a good result, we plan that, right? So we allowed ourselves to plan drilling in places like Vagar, in Sava, and then geophysics in other areas to plan them for drilling next year, subject to the fact that they come out good from the results we're getting.
Well, Sava, let's take Sava. Sava has come out good by any metric. Where'd you go with Sava? Sava, let's fill the audience in. It may prove to be a new IOGC belt. IOGC is iron ore, copper, and gold, and that's a whole new belt which you may have, you think you've discovered, which is a big deal. And so, what are your plans for Sava in 2022?
So we will continue sampling all of that surface outcrop that is there to better define the size of it. But then ideally we would like to be in a position to test drill that, right? For a discovery holes. And we have rigs, we have team and everything in place to do that. So that will be an ideal program for Sava this year. So
then let's go back to the gentleman's question. How do you allocate your budget across all these different wonderful discoveries? You have a cornucopia of discoveries here.
Yeah, so you allocate them based on what we do. We do an internal valuation on each and every single project. We do Nalunaq, Vagar, and all of different things. Is it a return on capital you're looking for? Sorry?
Are you looking for a return on capital?
Exactly. It's more difficult when you have an exploration project, but there are methods that we use, 5 different methods to give us a good valuation on that. And then we build up likelihood of success versus not. The good thing for us, usually we are sampling gold on surface or copper on surface, so it becomes maybe less risky. But it's also to evaluate the amount of return and how likely is that this project will then be further funded through resource drilling through a major or someone else.
Great. Would you consider a joint venture? Someone has just asked. Would you? Apologies, I've lost the message. But would you consider a joint venture?
Yes, of course. We discuss with various different parties all the time, but we want to make sure that our value is attributed really well for our investors, and therefore that means.
Is that difficult? Is it difficult to find your values aligning?
No, not in our way. We built our valuation model ourselves, so we know when we believe our value has been matched, and what we always have an idea of what the next 3 to 5 year work program should be for an asset. Obviously, if an asset doesn't continue, and therefore that gives us a very good allocation. So we track that very well, and we have discussion with various different parties to understand.
What do these discussions consist of? Do they want you to work the resource up and make it much larger, and for you to do that work, or are they happy to come in at an earlier stage?
Generally, majors, I can't be specific on any of these, but generally major, like in a new frontier jurisdiction, they like to come in once you build up all of the know-how and all of you de-risk the assets, right? That gives us, the juniors, very much value uplift, but it also de-risks the project for the majors. That's usually. They sometimes come in earlier, either through a direct investment into company or through a joint venture, which as a quiet partner. So you have these two, that's generally how this works.
Are you going to give us a clue here? Is there anything like that in the offing?
Currently, we're just working on the basis of our capital and building the right team. We have the right team to bring this forward. They have the capabilities and understanding like any other major company. So we trust them, and we trust the market to kind of follow us. And we have very good support in our investor if we need to further grow some of these assets. So So we do that at the right time to create the best value for our shareholders.
Eldur, I can't believe it. We're actually out of time. It's such a blow. I've thoroughly enjoyed that.
And
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us, Eldur. I hope our investors enjoyed that. I certainly did. That was fantastic. Thank you so much. It's very rare you get to come across a company which has got so much potential as AEX Gold.
Thank you, Donald, very much.